Hey guys, what is up, and I welcome you to a very special episode of my Did You Know series. A lot of you seem to really enjoy the previous theory episode that I had made featuring Nocturne and Zed. And after a lot of time spent researching and making this video, I am here to present to you guys another theory. This theory is going to be asking, is the champion LeBlanc the same person as the champion Jarvan IV? Now you might be wondering, how's that even possible, considering not only are they the opposite gender, but they fill completely different roles. Well, I encourage you guys to sit back, enjoy, grab a drink, grab a snack, because there's going to be a lot of information being sent your way. So let's begin this video with asking the question, where is this theory assumption even coming from? Why is this assumption being made? What is making this connection? Well, it all began from one piece of artwork. This is an artwork depiction of a huge battle that happened between Noxian soldiers and Demacian ones, of course led by Swain and Jarvan IV respectively. But you still might be wondering why this artwork is the reason that this whole question is even being asked. Well, if you zoom into Swain's breastplate, you can see a reflection of not Jarvan's face, which is what it should be, but instead LeBlanc's. And this is the sole reason that does beg the question, is Jarvan actually LeBlanc? The short answer that I believe to be true is yes, and that the Jarvan is actually LeBlanc in disguise as a spy for Noxia. But let's dive into some facts. Taking a quick look at LeBlanc's history, you can see how it states that she is the leader of the Black Rose, who was a group or clan that was a huge part of Noxia history, and also had a huge influence on it. It also mentions later how the Black Rose was the true power behind the throne of Noxia. And then it also seems to say how the Black Rose seemed to just vanish overnight, as if either they finished their duty or they are simply performing their duties still, such as LeBlanc taking the role of Jarvan and obviously not being LeBlanc and not being the leader of the Black Rose anymore for the time being. So keep these things in mind. Before, whenever a champion would be admitted into the League of Legends, they would first have something done to them. This something is called the League or Champion Judgment, which is usually performed by a summoner from the League. And its purpose is to dive into the champion's minds, to discover and learn more about their past and their history. However, it seems that when Jarvan IV was admitted into the League of Legends, he did not have this done to him. Well, at least not by a real summoner from the League of Legends. What makes this so suspicious is that this judgment was performed a lot later, after many suspicious events had also happened. Very important events, some of which led up to the fight that you saw depicted in the artwork earlier. And these events are what I want to discuss with you guys next, because they suggest that when Jarvan was supposed to get his judgment, and the reason it was not done by an actual summoner from the League was 1. It was purposely made this way by the Noxian forces such as Swain, and 2. This was at the time when LeBlanc was already supposedly in the shape and form of Jarvan, hence bypassing all possibilities and chances of being revealed as an imposter. But let's dive into the Journal of Justice and all of the events. This all began when Swain appeared before Jarvan III and Jarvan IV, where they were signing documents of a treaty between themselves and Kalamanda, which is the neutral village that is in charge of the mines that people use to farm. Jarvan IV got very mad at Swain for the interruption that he is causing, but as Swain is standing in the picture above with someone else, he claims this man has confessed to the murder of the Noxian citizen in the mines and the attempted framing of Noxus. The confessor was a Demacian soldier that went by the name Thom Garvin. And after this statement, Jarvan III asked him whose orders was he following, and Thom answered, "I obeyed the commands of your son, the prince," which is Jarvan IV. Thom was then held in a prison by local authorities, and shortly after this event, Jarvan IV began denying any involvement in the conspiracy. Not too long after, the Demacian soldier who publicly confessed to conspiracy and sabotage in Kalamanda was found dead in his cell, and he was found out to be a victim of Nizer poisoning. However, who assassinated and gave him the poison, or whether he drank it himself, is still a mystery. But what makes it very suspicious is that a carriage believed to contain General Boram Darkwill himself, who is the leader of Noxus, was seen departing Noxus soon after the prisoner's fate was discovered. But what makes things very suspicious is that as they were heading to Kalamanda, the general and all of his forces were found dead. There were no traces of any attacking force or survivors, which the rest of the Noxian soldiers found very odd, since the site of the ambush is flat and open with little vegetation or terrain. In my opinion, Swain is behind all of this, and this is just a small part of his master scheme. And later in this video, you'll see for what I believe it is for. However, Swain naturally pointed his finger at Demacia, saying this is a clear declaration of war. But with a quick and public response, King Jarvan III of Demacia described the attack. stating, "This is a horrific tragedy. It is no secret that Demacian and Noxian forces have opposed each other on numerous occasions, but General Darkwill and I were able to, after so much conflict, put our rivalries aside for the greater good. I did not order this attack." So clearly this is a huge scheme that is being set up by Swain. After all, he is the master tactician, and this is just an excuse in order to go to war. And that is exactly what happened. It seems Jarvan IV was the first one to strike a blow against the General Swain. According to eyewitnesses, Swain was making his usual rounds of the Noxian camp when he was ambushed by Jarvan, who was lurking in the shadows nearby. But what makes this war even more interesting is the fact that Prince Jarvan has not been seen on the battlefield since his initial clash with Swain. But the Noxus Master Tactician has stridden the front lines, issuing commands and urging his troops onwards. And the Demacian soldiers had no idea whether Jarvan IV was killed or captured. To me, all of these events mean one of two things. One, that Jarvan was already captured and or killed, and that the Jarvan that initiated this whole fight and made the first blow was actually LeBlanc, all done on purpose in order to stage this whole thing. Or two, this was actually Jarvan attacking Swain, but ended up getting caught in the middle of the fight, and now is completely missing. Taking another look at that page, you can see Tryndamere mentioning how Jarvan, even though he can be a hothead, it is hard to imagine him starting the fight with stakes like these. But shortly after, he also states that those two have always had a special hatred for each other, and if anyone were to get to him, it would be Swain. Which still makes things somewhat confusing as to what I just said about the two different stories that this can explain. However, before we continue, I want to take a quick break and jump into Jarvan's lore. In his lore, it also states how he was captured by Swain, but then it also states how he was rescued by an elite Demacian strike force led by Jarvan's childhood companion, Garen. But the main line I want to discuss is the one that is highlighted, which states, "Those close to him believed that his capture had changed him. Xin Zhao was quoted as saying, 'His eyes never seemed to look at you, only through you to something he could not look away from.'" Keep in mind that this quote is said after he was already captured and after he was saved, which obviously begs the question, who did they actually save? The real Jarvan or LeBlanc as Jarvan? The next thing within the Journal of Justice talks about Jarvan IV's return to Demacia, and in the picture above you can also see that he is escorting two prisoners. But the question is, who are they, and are they actually prisoners? What makes his return so interesting and suspicious is his new and seemingly changed attitude, because Garen greeted him at the gates and offered him assistance, but he was turned down by Jarvan in front of the whole crowd. A Demacian guard by the name of Velcaris also states how his arrival was completely unannounced, making it really random, and then also stated that the prince was very clear that no questions were to be asked. Doesn't this sound a lot like something LeBlanc would say if she took the form of Jarvan and came back to Demacia like this? Another interesting thing is that apparently the prince did not stop to acknowledge his citizens, which is very unlike him. When Garen questioned Jarvan about the identity of the two prisoners, Jarvan, in front of the whole crowd, responded with, "This is the business of the crown. Your loyalty is appreciated, Garen, but the Dauntless Vanguard has no place in this matter. Stand down." As Jarvan entered the castle with the prisoners, the prince apparently has not been seen outside the castle walls, and the identity of the prisoners still remains to be unknown. As a final note, Swain became the new general of Noxus after killing the previous general's son, Kairine Darkwill. And in the picture above, you can see Talon and Katarina, both a member of the Duca 2 family, seeing Swain being crowned as the new Grand General of Noxus, which I believe is all part of his plan to kill the previous general, gain position and power, and have LeBlanc as a spy within Demacia as Jarvan. So these are the main points that I want to share with you guys to prove behind the fact of whether or not LeBlanc and Jarvan are the same person. However, before I end off this episode, there's still a few things that I wish to share with you guys. The first thing is that their idle animations when they're standing in one spot seem to be somewhat similar. How they're both holding something in almost exact same way, both somewhat shifting side to side, making it look somewhat suspicious. Also, LeBlanc's title is The Deceiver, which is perfect for what she is doing, such as impersonating Jarvan IV. And then she also has a quote that sounds very interesting as well.
"Looks can be deceiving."
On top of this, looking back at the lore from the Journal of Justice, did you notice how at the beginning when Jarvan was accused of telling the prisoner in the mines to kill someone, he instantly started to defend himself and saying he had nothing to do with it? However, he never denied the fact that he struck the first blow against Swain to begin the all-out war, which is quite the opposite of how the real Jarvan reacted to accusations back at the beginning. Also, another interesting point was made by a user in the community, is that in the last panel of the sneak peek of Talon, who of course is part of the Duca 2 family, which is also part of Noxia, The blade in that panel is surrounded by black roses, which is the clan that LeBlanc was the leader of, on top of having Swain's bird sitting on the sword. Maybe he was the one that poisoned the Demacian soldier within the prison. Alright guys, that is about all the information that I can cram up together and throw right at you guys. So, tell me what you think. Do you believe that this is true? Do you think that LeBlanc and Jarvan are the same person, such as LeBlanc taking over Jarvan's place, and Jarvan is either sitting captured within Noxia or he has been killed? Or do you think this is all just a mere coincidence, and that the real Jarvan is actually Jarvan himself? Tell me what you guys think down below, and also please do throw in a like if you did enjoy this video. You can also check out my previous theory video where I talk about the relationship between Zed and Nocturne. And also, if you have the time, check out my French channel, The Paquito. Description below contains the link for more sweet League of Legends action. But once again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you next time. Peace.